So I'm going to give you a quick update. Again, I'll do the introductions. Ryan Swanson, who's the captain of our patrol division, Mike William, who is the captain of our criminal investigators, and Dan Rittenhouse, who is the chief deputy of our police services bureau. I'm going to go through real quick on the charges. I think most of you do know that the arraignment was last night at Cap Court, which is over at our jail. The charges were murder 2, felony tampering with physical evidence, and criminal use of a firearm in the first degree. There's a follow-up court appearance, and we can get you that. I'll send a formal press release after this, so you'll have the next date of court. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee on the court appearance. Sometimes they get delayed, or sometimes moved, or sometimes the defendant waives them and they'll go to county court. As far as the scene, we talked yesterday about we were executing some search warrants. The one was on Bonner Hill Road, Bonner Hill? Bonner Road. Bonner Road, excuse me. Bonner Road in Austin. That search warrant was executed, and the actual, what we believe to be the actual scene of the homicide was there on Bonner Road. That was, again, a lot of forensics, a lot of our technicians and our specialty teams. I want to give a big thank you to all the members from patrol to CID to the specialty teams, our technicians. Again, all that comes into how this plays out later in the prosecution. As far as the timeline, we talked again yesterday about the missing person started in Irondequoit in Monroe County. The suspect is preliminary, again, believed to have lived in the city of Rochester. So I know your question is, well, how do we end up on Bonner Road in Austin? And again, preliminary, it appears that the suspect was trying to start some type of marijuana grow operation there through the state. So it's, you can imagine, pretty country setting there, a lot of land and some different outbuildings and structures on the property. Lastly, before I take any of the questions you may have as a follow-up, and again, I preface that with there's a lot of questions I'm not going to be able to answer, either because we're working through the timeline or I just can't share at this moment due to pending prosecution. But the one clarification I want to give you is yesterday I talked about how this ended up at our doorstep. And I said that we received the call, and I think the way I worded it sounded like the suspect is the one who called us, and it was not the suspect, which may make you think, well, who called? He arrived here in a separate car. So you have the suspect in the car with his deceased father, and in a separate car is his defense attorney, who is Brian DeCarlis. So the call actually was made by the defense attorney to say, we're out in the parking lot with a deceased body. So again, very abnormal situation, something that we've not dealt with here. I'm not sure that it's happened somewhere else, but for our experience, it's very, very uncommon. So with that, I will take any questions that you have as a follow-up. And again, following that, I'll send out the formal press release.
Sheriff, what do you do in a situation when an attorney like that is involved? Is the attorney going to be investigated?
Yeah, I mean, we don't rule it out because we have to figure out typically we don't investigate attorneys, but when you have a homicide, everything's investigated. What's the timeline? When did the attorney get involved? What physical evidence is there? All those different things, but it certainly is a different situation, and I don't want to make it sound like, well, the defense attorney's under investigation for homicide. No, but it's something we absolutely consider of while we're working through this very methodically. How did that occur? You know, it's, again, part of the timeline.
Yeah, and about Bonner Road, are you able to say when exactly those search warrants were executed, and if you can say at all why you believe that is the scene of the homicide?
They were executed yesterday afternoon through county court warrants. So the investigators applied through and received the authority through the county court, meaning the judge at county court. I believe it was Judge Noto. And then the scene, as you can imagine, when there's any type of gunshot wounds, the scene was pretty obvious that we had the right place to really get into the evidence. So you have a scene here via the vehicle with the deceased, but the actual scene Our preliminary investigation is telling us that's the scene of the actual crime.
Anything you could say about that weapon?
I'm not going to say anything about the weapon at this time, but again, I will confirm that he had multiple gunshot wounds and that we did recover a weapon.
Are you able to say how many gunshot wounds he had?
I'm not going to at this point, just for the investigation.
Sheriff, yesterday when we spoke, you said at the time, of course, it was believed that it may have been the suspect. I guess what had changed, in the course where it was determined that it was actually the attorney, and is there any notice? Is the attorney cooperating with everything as well?
Yeah, no. I want to be clear. We never thought that the attorney was involved. It's more that I'm sure the attorney was put in quite a precarious position. Receiving a phone call, I assume, like that. Again, this will be part of the investigation, so this is just me saying what I would say on behalf of the defense attorney, making the phone call to dispatch to report this. Has anything changed in the regard of the suspect relationship? No. He was our primary suspect, meaning Fluegel Jr. Our suspect was our suspect from the beginning. There's just this other component when you have the very strange mode of reporting, bringing his deceased father here to our doorstep, but then also the defense attorney making the report. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question? It's complex. I guess that's the best way to put it to you, and all part of the investigation. So I want to be very clear that the defense attorney is not under investigation. Simply, at this moment, he reported it to us, brought the attention to our parking lot to say, we're here, and we have a deceased body in the car next to me, and that we weren't going to talk to his client. He was invoking his rights.
And are you able to say just when investigators met with Mr. Fluegel Jr., what his state was like, just that interaction at that point?
I'm not going to comment on those specifics, again, to preserve the prosecution, but I will say we did not have any opportunity to interview Fluegel Jr. because his defense attorney had made the report, said we're in the parking lot, and invoked his rights. So there was never any type of interview to ask questions or anything of that nature. It was simply, here he is. And so that's how that is rolled out. This case is again, I think I said yesterday, a bunch of forensics. And we've had cases like this before. This is not uncommon where you don't have the story. But I've said this in past homicides we've had. The evidence on scene tells the story. And I have full confidence in our members and our technologies and our equipment that we always get the story. And so when we have the actual scene, and we put that with the expertise of our members, and we put that with the technology to utilize via equipment, we're going to have a story to provide to the district attorney's office that they can then prosecute.
As a quick follow-up as well, I know that it was indicated yesterday that Fluegel Jr. may have a criminal history. Is there anything, we have reached out to the DA's office just to see if there's anything that you can share at this point just regarding any potential history?
Yeah, I looked at his file, and he had 6 prior arrests, some misdemeanors, some felonies, and 2 felony convictions.
And is that all within Livingston County, or is that all?
We had nothing criminal in Livingston County. So we're verifying some stuff out of Monroe. That's where it looked like it was. So before I comment on anything connected to those arrests, I want to verify. So.
Yeah, you mentioned marijuana operations, and I was kind of going to ask about the criminal history with that. Besides criminal history, do you have any sort of mental history with him? Does he have any mental health issues, anything like that you know of?
Yeah, the mental health stuff's tough in and of itself to comment on, but I will say all of that is part of the ongoing investigation. So if you picture it this way, from the time, and I think I said this yesterday, from the time the last person had eyes on him other than the suspect to the moment we get the call and put eyes on both the suspect and his deceased father in the parking lot, that's the window we care about. I mean, there's going to be other things that the investigation hits that are not the priority. Past arrests, past mental health, current mental health. that window we care about the most is the time of the last living person to talk to the deceased dad, senior, when he left Irondequoit to the time that he arrives here in our parking lot deceased. That's the timeline we're zoomed in on. And I got to tell you, we got a pretty good timeline already into this case, and it's only going to improve.
Yeah, if this is something you can answer, do you think that during that timeline that you're talking about, he may have been on drugs, or that played a factor in this at all?
Yeah, at this point, preliminary, I'm not going to comment on it. A lot of, I will say this, our investigators, they're tenacious, and they get like a dog on a bone. And so there's a lot of tentacles, and they're working all those angles hard. But I've seen the timeline, and I like what I'm seeing so far of where the being able to answer the basics, why, how, where, all that basic questions we want, and then you dig in deeper. And again, we can't bring him back. Our condolences to this family. I mean, it's sad on multiple levels, multiple levels of the deceased and the suspect. It's like a double whammy, I'm sure, of emotion. But the best we can do for them is deliver justice. And the best way we can do that is giving the most thorough, accurate, articulate investigation over to the DA's office for prosecution.
Yeah, and then apologize my pronunciation on this, but that road that you were talking about, the house,
Bonner
Road, is that where you think Richard Jr. lived, or is that just like a random residence?
No, we believe that he had some type of business related to marijuana that he was trying or in the process of incorporating there.
Yeah, and then have you guys spoken to the family? How are they doing with this? How are they cooperating?
Yeah, we have spoken with the family. They're absolutely cooperating. As far as like the personal stuff, I'm not going to comment on that. Again, my deepest condolences to them. And the best I can say is they're going to get everything we got to bring this to justice.
Did he own that land?
He did not.
Sheriff, are you able to say if Richard Jr. went by any other different names?
I cannot.
And I understand the murder and weapon charges were in Ashen. Is that because of the Bonner Road and what you believe to be a homicide scene?
Yeah, so again, you have two scenes here. You have the original scene, pulling the parking lot, deceased body in the car. That's a scene. So that's why that was taped off, and a bunch of forensic work done throughout the night from roughly 11:30 till the next morning at 7, 8 o'clock, right? So you got that scene, and then yes, to answer your question very specifically, we believe that the actual crime scene is on Bonner Road, and so that's why the charge for the murder and the weapons charge is Austin. The tampering is here in Geneseo.
And is there any indication as to how long Junior had lived in Rochester?
I'm sure we have that information, but I don't have it right now. But again, as all of this comes together, this isn't like well, let me be clear. This will probably be the last time we all meet collectively on this, and we will give updates. You can either inquire or we'll provide them out. But this case won't be done today, and it won't be done tomorrow. This is one that it'll be all hands on deck with our team of investigators for several weeks, if not longer. Again, it's the tentacles all take you different directions, but at the end of it, it's all one big package for prosecution.
Any idea about motive at this point?
Again, that's something that becomes part of the package, and even if I did have a motive right now, I wouldn't comment on it for the prosecution. And that's something we always have to be careful about. Our job here is to investigate, and the DA's office job is to prosecute, and I never want to say something that's going to prohibit that or cause more complexities to something that's already complex.
Are you able to confirm exactly where in Dansville Miss Fluegel Senior's car was located?
Yeah, it was a bit, I'll just tell you, it was Tops in Dansville. We typically say business, and I would like to protect Tops in that situation, but I know most of you already have that information on Tops, so I'll just clarify and confirm it for you. Yeah, it was the Tops parking lot in the village of Dansville. All right, folks, I appreciate you. Like I said, we'll get a formal release out with all the narrative. And again, there won't be any updates further on this. And if there is in the next couple days, it'll probably come via a release. All right? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
That one here.